Hello, Shannon. How are you?
So good, James. Thanks for having me.
Good. So, everybody, this is Shannon Charbonneau. I got that right.
You did.
From XPS. And she's going to tell us some things about the client experience. She's going to tell us about XPS and maybe even some of the services and stuff that they provide in the storage industry. So, take it away.
I'd love to. So first, I'll give a little bit of just an introduction for myself and background, because I have heard people say, why do you think you're qualified to even speak about these things when you come in and talk to people? So first of all, my name is Shannon, and I've been with XPS Solutions now since 2011. That was my first step into self-storage as an industry. But I always joke that I have been doing client relations or customer support of some kind since all the way back in the 1900s. And
Whoa.
it is it's a passion of mine. It's just built in, hardwired part of who I am, that there's no such thing as a company that doesn't have a customer, right? And our customers are the whole reason that we do what we do. Um, I am huge into making sure that you have a relationship with your clients. And in self-storage, that's just a little bit different because our tenants tend to be people that we don't necessarily speak with all the time. And it also tends to be people who are meant to be transient, right? They're meant to come and go, and not necessarily stay forever and ever, although we love the ones who do. Um,
They pay
but
our
so
bills. They pay our bills.
they do pay our bills. They do pay our bills. Um, but I think the main thing that I just kind of wanted to speak about was, if we are going to be in this industry, if you're going to be an owner operator of a storage facility, doing what's right by your tenants has to be like the top of the list, because they're the ones who are paying to keep the lights on and take care of all of your businesses, right?
Right.
So the kind of the first thing that I would talk about would be from the perspective of someone who is actively seeking out their first facility, if they're just getting into the self-storage realm, and the best ways that you're going to be able to provide service for your tenants. The first thing that I would recommend is, if you haven't already chosen your software management system, I would really start with that platform, because you can kind of think of it like the head of an octopus. Everything else kind of attaches to that platform, and you are going to want to work with someone that you want to work with, right? So meet with several, talk with them, and then once you find somebody that you really want to work with, the questions then become, okay, what websites are you integrated with? What security systems are you integrated with? What call centers are you integrated with? This is where you start building in the arms of that octopus. But every bit of it is intended to make, obviously, your system run, right? You want your business to run, but to provide the service that you want to provide to your callers.
Okay. So
So,
you talk about when you talk about the software for the newbies, obviously, there's a bunch of different ones out there, and some are changing and morphing and stuff like that because obviously technology comes along and changes a lot of things. Um, when for the newbies, like I know what the basic software does. Can you explain from your perspective what the basic software does for them, so that they understand where that like you said, the head of the octopus.
sure. And I mean, keep in mind that I'm on a third party side, so my front end experience on the software management is limited. But what I would say is that it is the operating system for your business. So this is where you're running your accounting, it's where you're keeping your inventory, it's where you have reports about your the number of units that are rented and to whom. That's where you're going to be making decisions as far as your pricing strategies and things like that. And again, you can layer in third-party processes for that as well. Many of the software management systems include some form of CRM, like being able to keep up with your individual tenants. Um, and one thing I would say about whatever software you choose is just to really make it your business to get in and know all of the different features that are available to you. Um, Utilize them to their fullest capacity before you make the decision to go find a third party, right? Because you may find that you're already paying for something that does what you need done. Now, you might need additional services or people, in my case, right, for XPS,
Sure.
but maybe not. And it might be part of something that you already have. So I would encourage you to just really dig in and utilize every bit of the resource that you've already chosen on
You
that.
know, what I've noticed too about the software stuff, and we'll just touch on that and then and move along. But what I've noticed too is, like you collect a lot of data in the process of it all. Not
Mhm.
only do you collect their names, addresses, phone numbers, and email addresses so that you can get paid, but you collect a lot of data of what units are being occupied and what units are selling selling out before the other ones, and all along that whole aspect doing things like back in the 1900s when people were writing stuff down. I mean, I've actually looked at and purchased properties that stuff was handwritten,
Sure.
and converted that over to software, and how much that program changes the whole uh, outlook and expectation of your property. I mean, it
For sure.
just
That's what we call low hanging fruit, James. If you can find facilities like that that are still offline, so to
yeah.
speak, just making that one change, you can flip a switch on profitability
Yeah,
with
and
that.
then from there, as you said, like everything kind of just gets its own arms and it goes in different directions. Then you
Mhm.
can add your website to it, make sure that that software you can add your website to it. You can add tenant protection to it. You can add, other technologies such as like spider door gates and store
Yep.
pass and all these different things that you can add to this program to make this one program do all those different little legs.
Yes. And it's very important again that you ask them who do they work with? Who do they have, good arrangements with in the industry? Because the worst thing you can do is choose a software management system and then find out that the gate system that you had your heart set on does not integrate, right?
Right.
So really you want to be ahead of that. And again, same thing is if you've been operating for a while, but let's say you're using a legacy software system and you're thinking of upgrading, um, ask your software provider, who are you integrated with already, right? Because some of these are brand spanking new, and the answer to that is nobody quite yet. We're just working on that. Right. And I want to be really, really clear that from a vendor in this industry, that is a fair response. Um, but you may have to have some patience, right? Development takes a little bit of time. And if you are going with a new platform, many of our service providers have changed from one platform to another platform within it. You can see it at Storage Commander, you can see it at Quick Store, you can see it at SSM, where they were on one platform and now they're on another platform. And it's wonderful and it is always great things, but it is always development too, right? And it's, one at a time for each of their individual vendor partners that they work with. XPS, I can tell you, we're integrated with about 10 different SMSs, and that does not happen overnight. That's not a quick process. That is a very detailed and thorough situation because we're dealing with your inventory and your tenant's money. And so you have to make sure that that's right.
Sure. You want to make sure it's encrypted and make sure that,
Of course.
that people's information isn't getting out there and everything.
Yeah.
So as we take off from the octopus head,
Mhm.
let's before we continue that, tell us a little bit about XPS and your position at XPS. What do they do, and what is your position there? And then we'll go from that, and we'll go back to that. We'll table that for a second, just so that people understand where you're coming from, your experience as far as with working with XPS for such a long period of time, what they do and what they offer.
Of course. So XPS is a third-party vendor here in the call center industry, specifically for call center services. And we offer that service from very, very basic, like automated only services, all the way up through full-blown remote managers who are off-site but act as if, right? So they can do anything that is by phone, by email, in your system, unless, until it expects somebody to show up at the facility, right? Then they're not the ones for that. But it basically everything in between. We're handling customer support, we're handling rentals right over the phone, and we're handling the escalated and expanded support items that the APIs to the SMSs really never could handle. So just being able to handle, more elevated inquiries that in the past might have needed to go to a customer service person at the facility, right? Or a manager at the facility. These days there are fewer managers, or the managers are available for fewer hours. So it's a service that we have integrated to help support those clients, although still about 60% of our remote managed facilities, they still have staff. They use us as like a backup offsite assistant manager, really. So it's a really, really good cost-effective way to get additional support for your tenants and your prospective tenants. Because let's face it, we don't want to miss any prospect calls.
And a lot of times too, once you have more than one facility, you might end up doing, like we do like a hub and spoke. We
Sure.
don't call it hub and spoke, but it
Mhm.
ends up being the same thing where you have a store manager here at the bigger facility, and then you got a couple small facilities out there that, hey, they're going to be calling you, well, what
Mhm.
happens when, you know, you get inundated, right? And
Right.
this person can't they can't handle the overflow, or this week they're only working, they're off 3 days because of whatever, and you don't have a backup manager. Well,
Right.
if you had a service like XPS as the backup, or in the let's call it waiting in the wings,
Yep.
and they can provide assistance to that. So that's what I'm understanding. So.
Well, and I'll go out on a limb here and say, as far as our perspective goes, from a vendor perspective, this is really no different than it's ever been, because we have always existed in the overflow, so to speak. So even when like, let's just say you have a 4-story climate controlled 1,200 unit building with 3 full-time staff members, you're still only open 55 hours a week,
Right.
right? That leaves a lot of hours where you're not open,
Yeah,
right?
even
And
with
even during the open hours, you could absolutely have a person standing at your counter when the phone rings, right? So XPS, since its very inception, has existed in that overflow. If you can't answer the phone for whatever reason, it's outside of your office hours, or you have someone standing with you, or, we all know you could be standing in a unit trying to drag a wet mattress across the floor, right?
that,
Not the time to pick up the phone, right? So
exactly.
having someone who exists in that overflow to help specifically with that, it's a really big deal, because, you're not going to be surprised if I came here to talk to you about client experience. Answering the telephone if it rings is pretty high on that list. James, like, that's a big deal.
I have to tell you that when I'm when I'm looking at a property to purchase a property, a lot of times I do my market study of the local, 3 to 5 miles, and I get street rates. And there's times that I've called facilities that are
4 or 5 times.
they never
Mhm.
answer. I don't even get an answering machine.
Right.
Like, then there's times that I would get an answering machine. Well, I call it an answering machine. You can tell my age.
Yeah.
Um, but I call, I'll leave a message. They never call me back.
Yep.
And I mean, and truly, I know that I'm not a prospective client for them, but
But
they
they
don't,
don't.
right? I'm calling up going, hey, I see you got 10 by 10s available, and I see that it's this much amount of money, and blah, 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 blah. Give me a call back, because I like to pick the brain of the manager on site. Um, and find out, what their woes are or whatever, just in general, secret shopping, we'll say. And there's times that nobody answers the phone,
Mhm.
and I find it hard to believe just in being in this business. However, I've noticed it in other businesses as well where people don't answer the phone. So like having a call center, even for a small business, to me sounds like it's where you make the money for the people that Google you real quick and say, oh, there's a place right here, let's call them. And then you're
Right.
out, you're walking a guy or a lady out, a person out to a unit to show them what the 10 by 10s look like.
Hmm.
And the phone's ring, 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 ringing off the
All the
hook,
time.
and nobody's
Yeah.
answering. So,
Well, and to take that kind of a step further, I have a lot of people who say, oh, you know what, we're going to move because apparently I am not plugged in and I don't want my computer to die. Sorry about that.
okay.
Um, but we have a lot of people who will tell us things like, uh, I have a manager, right? I don't need you. And they'll take care of the calls. Or I am absolutely fine on phone calls. And plus that, everybody's just going to do everything on my website,
Yeah,
right? And
always.
so, yeah, and as a call, first of all, have a great website. It's a really big platform that I will always stand on is make sure that your website is fantastic. Make sure that they can rent a unit easily. I could spend an hour just talking about going through that process to make sure it's friendly to your new tenant, right? But here's what I can tell you from a call center perspective. If I listen to calls to my rental, specifically people who want to rent, not customer service, people who want to rent, fully 80% of those calls start with the words, "Hi, I was looking at your website and dot, dot, dot." Okay. So if you are thinking that your website is the cure of all ills, it's going to handle all of your business for you, it will for some, right? And if you're content with those some, great. But I am telling you, we have a million plus phone calls per year where people still needed something else and they still wanted a person. And one of the things, and I'm remiss if I get off of any phone call and I don't say these words, just get me. You have my permission. You spend a fortune making your phone ring. Please, if it does, answer it well. And if you can't, there are companies like XPS who can help you with that. And I also want to be really clear because sometimes people, they're thinking of staffing in their head, right? If I were to hire another person, it would be X dollars. Um, the benefit of a third party call center is that really you're only paying for a portion of a person that's available just the few minutes a day that you need them for those phone calls, right? When you hire a whole living person, you're paying them for all the hours, right? You might only need them for, say, 4 hours a week, but you only need them for 10 minutes at a time. When the phone rings, you cannot possibly staff to that ever. But when you hire a third party company, we can,
Right.
right?
The
And
10 minutes a day that they're not, or the 10 minutes that they're answering your phone call.
right,
The rest of the day they're answering other people's phone calls. So
correct.
every 10-minute increment goes to somebody different. And then it makes sense that you're not paying that salary or that hourly rate for that one individual because it adds up. You have to have insurance, you have to have payroll taxes,
With your
all,
all your fringe added into
yeah,
that, it
yeah.
absolutely even a part-time person could be 35, $40,000 a year, right?
And I noticed too that a lot of people that I talk to in the storage industry, some are going way to the right side of things and saying, "I do everything remote and it's working perfectly for me." And then I
Mhm.
have people that come all the way to the left side and say, people first, okay? And I don't disagree with either one of them, but I know as a customer of any type that when I have a question and I go online
Mhm.
and it's fully remote, and you can't get the question across to the auto bot person that is on the other side that can't understand your tone, can't understand, what you're trying to get through. Sometimes I want to just like, here's my phone number, call me,
Mhm.
because it's the inflection of talking to a person, the that fact that the person has has cognitive sensibility, and you can say, hey, here's what the issue is, blah
I
blah.
say answer it well. It's not
Right,
enough just to answer the phone. You need to
right.
answer it
Yeah,
well.
click yes, click no. Did this answer your question? No. Okay. So what do you want me to do? So what's, and you find yourself back at the beginning again, where it's like,
Mhm.
what can we help you with? And you're like, I just told you what you can help me with. So having that person on the other end of the phone, absolutely, I fully agree that having a human, and I say that human now because AI is getting pretty technical,
It
but
is. And listen, I am not here to tell you not to use AI. I
right.
think the guys over at Swivel specifically are doing a fantastic job. But I hope that if you were to go ask Mason Levy today, does he want to have a relationship with someone like us so that when people get to the end of what they want from AI and need a live person, I hope that I could count on him to say yes,
Right.
right? Because
Right.
AI is great right up until somebody says, I want a person. And that's the one thing AI cannot do. It can never be a person,
Well,
right?
like, we do it in our daily lives. I have the lady that I ask questions to, and I don't want to say her name because then she'll
She'll
ask,
start talking to you.
start talking to me. But like, I'm sitting there and I'm watching a show or something, and I go like, huh, I never knew that, and I go, hey, that lady,
What show has he been in?
right, you're right, right. And then I'm sorry, I can't help you with that, or I don't have the answer for that. And you're like, what do you mean? What do you like? Where am I supposed to get this information? We're so hooked into it now that,
It's
like,
true.
there's not encyclopedias out there. Stuff's moving too fast. Back in the day, you wanted to know about the Great Pyramids and how big they were, or whatever. You just looked it up in a book, right?
Yep.
Now it's
I'd help you if it had a typo. You remember
right.
it wrong until you
Right.
die now.
Right. Or if it was written by a person. Well, I mean, the data they have is also written by people. But what I'm saying is, like, it's very, we've become accustomed to instant gratification too.
Right.
So, you know, um, and taking a step back from that instant gratification and having a live person to talk to on the other end is so much. I mean, to me, it's so much easier, because
And if it's what they want, right? Because James, again, I'm not one of those aestheticists, is that what they call it, where they're like anti-technology.
right, right, yeah,
I'm saying from a customer service perspective,
sure.
be there how they want you to reach out to them, right? So I think you should have an app. I think you should have an automated payment system. I think you should sign people up for auto pay whenever you can. I think that we should utilize every bit of the technology that's available to us. But at the end of the day, if the phone rings, you got to answer it, right? That's all I'm saying.
I'm gonna make a little bit of a funny right here, real quick. Have you ever seen The Big Bang Theory?
I love the Big Bang
Okay.
Theory.
Do you know when Bob Newhart comes to Sheldon in his
In
dreams?
his dreams, uh-huh.
Well, the view that I have of you right now, the way that's shadowing across you with the backdrop,
Uh-huh. I
the,
have I have the whole bob. I'm so
the
sorry. I was so
I,
careful to sit
I
by the
know, I know. It's
window.
just funny because I'm sitting here going like, wow, like it's like she's coming to me in a dream.
I love it. Well, I'm plugged in over here, but I guess that power switch wasn't working because my
I'm just teasing you. I just
computer
thought,
was teasing me that it was going to shut down. Um, so yeah, again, be available and use all the technology 100%. But you're right, people do go one extreme or the other. And I just want to be in the middle. I've talked to people and there are people in this industry who will know when I say these words, you are hurting my heart right now because they will tell me, I just don't care if they rent somewhere else, if they're not going to rent on my website. That's just rent on the website. If you can't rent on the website, go to another store. I'm not the store for you. My little customer service heart, right? But at the end of the day, James, they have a profitable business. So who am I to tell them otherwise?
Yeah, I agree. I
Right?
mean,
Um,
you can only
and
lead the
and
horse to water, right?
right. And I've always said, listen, my job here is not to tell you how to run your business. My job here is to run air cover for what you need help with in your business. And so I need you to tell me what that is. Um, some people want different or more or less, right? I have some people using, straight up just give me a phone number where people can make a payment on the phone without having to talk to a live person, right? I just want them to be able to plug in their credit card number on the phone. Some people just use our mobile app so that your current tenants can find their own gate code because you know how often people are calling because they can't find their gate code, or make their payment or see when their last payment was made, all, the kinds of things that they can do on an app. The funny part about customer service is that people tend to rate you well as long as they are satisfied. So if they find their gate code on an app, you did nothing, right? But they will say if they're asked to provide a customer service score, it's going to be 5 out of 5 because they got what they needed. They got it quickly. It was easy. And that's what they're going to think. Plus that people who serve themselves tend to give themselves a break. So they think I did a great job. I have
And
served
if
myself
they
well.
didn't, they go, "Well, I don't really know how to use it, so it's not their
Right.
fault." Right?
Right.
I
Exactly.
find myself
So
doing that all the time. I go, well, maybe it's because of my eyes, and I just can't find. There, there's so many pop-ups, and I don't know what it just keep popping up, and I can't see where the X is to get rid of them. So,
uh,
is it them or is it me? And then I go, okay, it's probably me. So,
You know what? It's probably a little bit of both, James.
sure,
Let's face it.
sure,
Because again, going back to that website thing, I have walked through people's websites, their rental process, and it is 87 steps long before you get to the credit card.
right,
And I will look you dead in the eye and tell you, switch that around,
yeah,
right? You want to get that credit card much sooner in that process so that they're invested. They're
yeah,
100% skin in the game,
yeah,
right? To them, as soon as that number is plugged in, they're done, the decision is made. Now you can go, all right, now I need some more data from
right,
you.
right.
Whereas if you start asking for data, they could bail at any point in that process.
Right. Yeah. And most likely, you're right. Most likely, if I'm already in putting my credit card information in, I've already made the decision in my mind that I'm buying this, you know.
Yeah,
And when I get to the
done
end,
deal.
and it does, especially on my phone, if I get to the end and it's to the point where it's like I can't just click my payment that's on my phone to go right to it. I'm like, oh man,
Double click. You know the thumb, double click. That's
yeah,
all I want to
yeah.
do.
Now I got to go find my wallet that because
Mhm.
I'm in my
Yeah,
comfy pants. So I got to go in and get my wallet, and then by then I'm like, do I even need this?
right.
And then I'm out, right? So I agree with that. Let's go back to the octopus now.
Yep.
Uh, and we start out the head of the octopus. So SMS, get a good software,
Yep.
um, storage software management, and then let's talk about the rest of where the legs can lead.
So, our leg specifically, when it comes to call center services, should absolutely be integrated to provide your inventory that's available for sale with pricing, with promotions that are available that you want to use online and with your third party. I do really recommend to people that whatever specials that they make available on their website, that they also make those available to their call center agent. Again, keeping in mind that most of the calls we take are from people who are already looking at the website. So if you put a website promotion out there and made them pick up the phone and call you for whatever reason, but then you don't offer them that promotion, again, I'm always coming at this from the position of client experience, and that's not a great one,
Right.
right? At the best, they'll be told, oh, well, then just rent it online. Well, if they were going to do that, they would have done that just now before they picked up the phone and called you, right? So at worst, they'll get frustrated, think that you're trying a little bait and switch on them and hang up the phone and call somebody else.
Yep.
So I know that there are large operators out there who really do still have the opinion that I want my website to have the biggest, boldest, best pricing. And listen, there's a difference. If someone walks into your store jangling their U-Haul keys and they say, how much is a 10 by 10? It is street rate, is how much it is,
Right,
right?
right.
Um, but if they are talking to you over the phone and tell you I'm looking at your website, it needs to be whatever the price is that's on the website.
Sure. And
Right.
everybody needs to know it. And I mean, we as consumers, we experience that all the time when you call up, Comcast or whoever your internet provider is or whatever, and you call them up and you're going, "Hey, I saw this promotion on TV." You would think that when you called them, that if they, like you're saying, they have that data already in front of them, that you'd want them to offer that to you at that moment.
Right. Or that you'd be eligible as a long-term client. Yeah.
Correct. And not that we don't have move-in specials and people that are already in there don't get the move-in special.
Mhm.
However, if someone were to ask you that and say like, "Hey, well, I can go down the road and move my stuff out," and we all know how that works as far as storage. It's a pain in the butt to move all your stuff out for to save $10 a month, right?
It's
But
true.
if somebody does throw that out to you, it's good customer service to say, "Okay, we can accommodate you there." But if
Sure.
the person answering the phone doesn't know that they're allowed to accommodate you there,
Or they
then
can't. They've been told flat out no.
so they
Word.
can't, they don't know, they're limited because you didn't give them that, permission to do
Right.
so. I mean, it even happens with your store manager on site. If I had an experience recently where I'm like, if there's a person in the office standing in front of that person, they're there. They shouldn't leave without a unit,
Yes. You
right?
should be laying down on your belly with your arms around their ankles so they don't
Yes,
leave, right?
right. And if it takes you to say, "Well, hold on a second, I think we're getting ready to have a manager special," you know, let, let me
A
say,
little empowerment, right?
yeah, like give them a little bit and then say like, "Okay, well," and they know, the store manager knows that, either I give this guy a deal now or he walks out. Now,
Mhm.
I approach it differently as an owner because I'd almost turn around and go, if my occupancy's low, I'm going to go, "Hey, well, what are you willing to pay?"
Right,
I'm willing to
right.
pay
You
75
you don't
bucks.
necessarily want your manager to say that,
No, no,
though.
no, no.
Fair.
But me as an owner, I'm like, hey, I got an extra 10 units that aren't rented. I want somebody in there, right? And it would be different for me. And I don't want my manager to do that. That's why I hired them, right? Or that's why I hired a third-party management company so
Mhm,
that I can be an owner and not an operator.
mhm.
But I look at it as an owner going like, what's available to that person that they can make a game day decision,
Right.
and go like, "Hey, we got, the hook's in the mouth, the bait's still on there, you can take the hook out and let them have the bait, or you can just take the hook out and keep
Let
your
them fly
bait,
away. Yeah.
hope it catches something else, right?"
Mhm.
And
Well, and I'll give you one caveat too, because you were talking about it is kind of a pain. People don't really want to like pack up a unit and go move down the street for $10 a month.
right,
But I will caution you heavily that if you have RV and boat storage,
I
they
know.
they sure will.
Absolutely, because all they do
Yeah,
is they back their thing up and they
it's
hook
a
it on there and
15-minute thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're empty. I know, and I do own a boat and RV, and that's a lot of it when they come in and they want to negotiate price or whatever. I say to my third party management company, you got to consider that they know that too, but you got to consider that it's a 2 minute thing and they're gone.
Yep.
And it doesn't even, and if they're gone and they don't tell you anything anymore, like they don't even have to tell you. They just come back later, hook up and go,
Yep.
and you don't even know it's empty until they don't pay the next month, right? And then you go, "Hey, what happened?" And they go, "Oh, I moved
Oh, I
out.
left. Yeah.
The customer experience here was horrible," or whatever it may be.
Mhm.
And having somebody that they can talk to, especially after hours, like
Yeah.
that's so key. Like people work 9 to 5. You can't have your store manager working 9 to 5, right? You just can't. Like because when I'm done work at 5 o'clock and I'm like, oh, I gotta stop by the storage unit, and I drive by and they're closed already,
Mhm.
and then I go down the road and somebody else is open, I'm going to them because you know what? It was convenient for me on the way home. And that 9 to 5s and I called a place the other day locally here for me. For somebody said something. Oh, I was looking for. I'm buying a new house, and I was shopping around for U-Haul
Mhm.
just to use a truck, for the day. And I called this one place, and it was Saturday. It was like 11 o'clock, and they were closed. They're like,
Wow.
we'll, if you need anything, call us on Monday. And I'm like,
You're
I'm
gonna
like,
move on Saturday.
what? Not even that, but it's the day off. It's your day off. I get Sunday being closed. People want to, be with their families, and everybody needs a break. I get it.
That's just why I think everybody needs a call center, James.
There you go. And
Right,
honestly,
that's a you now have 104 hours a week of service, my friend.
right,
You don't
which
have to be open
honestly,
all those hours. You just have to answer the phone.
with honestly with that, that's a prime example that I just personally went through recently and ended up calling somebody else to reserve a truck for when I'm getting ready to move. And they lost a customer. And they're right down the road from me. Like I don't know them, but I know the facility. It's a good facility. And I thought, well, they gotta be. I mean, way we run our facilities, I'm like, I'll just call the place up the road. I've got the number, do. Hello, ring, 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 ring. Hi, yeah, we're not our hours are between this and this. And I was like, did they just say they're closed on Saturday and Sunday? Like, I was like, you got to be open on the hours that for customer experience, and that's what we're talking about, right? You have to be there when they're available. Sure, you don't want to be there until 9 o'clock at night, but at the same time, that between 4 and 7 in the evening is when people get home from work, they get finished dinner, they get ready to, okay, let me tackle the things I couldn't do all day because I was at work.
For sure. And you know what? And we didn't even talk yet about we're all talking about incoming, right? The first call for somebody who wants to rent. But
Yeah,
let's think about somebody who went online and got a quote, but didn't fill out the rental, right?
sure,
They didn't do the rental. Who's going
sure,
to pick up the phone and call them and say, "Hey, James, I saw that you were looking at our 10 by 10s. How can I get this rented for you today? Can I
right.
take care of that for you?"
The
Right?
follow.
Who's making that phone call?
Yeah,
Who is making the phone call to the tenants who didn't pay their bill this month?
right.
So those are, completely opposite ends of the spectrum, right? But still a service that if you are providing customer service, because keep in mind your client experience is from the minute they look at your website until they have moved out and even beyond, because our goal is to treat them so well that A, if they ever need storage again, they're coming back to you. B, when their neighbor says, you know what, I have got to get this junk out of my garage, they say, oh, I rented at Manus Storage and it was wonderful,
Right.
right? You want a 5-star review out of people when they're moving out.
Sure.
How was the service that you received from us? It was fantastic all the way through. Your technology worked great. Your people
Parent,
were kind.
communication, everything
Yep.
was there. They, not only by the, obviously we have to do everything by the law,
Of
but
course.
by the law and by the book doesn't mean a good customer experience. It
Well,
means
but it can, right? As long as they
yeah,
understand,
but it
right?
doesn't, yeah, but it doesn't
Yeah,
mean it is like just because like, well, I follow all the rules, I follow all the laws. When they're late, I give them their notice and this, that, well, also if you picked up the phone and said, hey, your payment's late, uh,
right.
and
Or
they
hey,
go,
your auto pay didn't go through. It looks like your credit card's expired.
right, or change, yeah, because there's times that I didn't know that my card expired, and I get a little email that says, hey, by the way, your Amazon Music
Mhm.
um,
Didn't
card,
go through.
card was denied. And I
Yep.
go, oh no, and I look at my card and I go, oh, I got to get a new card.
Right.
Well,
Well, or how many times has it happened? I mean, I've had this happen where somebody stole my credit card information and I'm like, oh, no, I have to call every single person I have auto pay,
yeah,
right? And it never fails. Like I'll forget, I don't know, the toll tag
just
people.
one. Yeah, one.
Right?
Yeah,
Right. And how nice would it be if they didn't assume I'm a deadbeat?
right?
right? But they actually called and go, hey, your payment didn't go through this month for the first time in 187 months. I'm
Right.
assuming something's wrong,
Well,
right?
I had the same thing happen just recently when you saying that is I went to England and Hungary last year, and somehow or another somebody over there got a hold of my debit card number, right? They didn't charge a lot of money on it. It was like 119 bucks total, but it was like I kept seeing this little $19 pop up here and there, and I was like, "What is this?" So I went and I went to the bank and I showed them, and I was like, it's happening now, and obviously I'm right here. Like, there's no way I could have been in London 12 hours ago. Well, I guess it could have been.
Right.
I'm here and it's happening, and I haven't been out of the country. So long and short of it all, they were like, "All right, let me issue a new card," and changed my number, which
Yep.
was fantastic. And then um, the gas company, my car, I had an auto pay on the gas company, and instead of them doing what you're talking about, they put a little thing on my door that funny that I say that they put a little note on my door, and it blew off my door, and it rained, and it was laying on the ground, and I was like, "What's that?" And I pick it up, and it says, "In 4 days from now,
You're
without
shutting off your gas.
yeah, if you don't call us within 72 hours or whatever it was, we're going to be shutting off your gas." And I look at it and I go, "It doesn't even have a date on it." Like, it's not, and I'm like, and it's springtime, so it's not like I have the heat on, right?
Right.
So I right away I call them up, and then when I call them, I get a voicemail, I leave a message, and I'm like going, like, "Hello, don't shut my gas off," like, and at
One pay.
the time I'm like, I've never missed a payment on anything. Like,
Right.
like look at my credit history and my
I
credit.
have an 885 credit score. Can we back up a step
Like,
here?
it's not, there's something wrong. But if someone would have called and said, "Hey, by the way, it looks
Mhm.
like your card expired," or did you, this card's canceled for some reason, that would have been a lot better than me panicking, running around, trying to call all the different people because I forgot them. Like you
Yep.
said, I forgot them, and they automatically, I'm a deadbeat and I
Yep.
don't pay my bills. And so I finally
And
get a
you
hold of them, and I say, "Oh, my card was, I had some, it was stolen, like the numbers were stolen, and I needed to get a new card. Here's my new card." And they were like, the lady was obviously very nice and
I was
everything.
going to say she was probably wonderful because
Yeah,
they hired her to answer the phone,
yeah,
and
yeah,
she did,
yeah.
and she
She called.
probably did it well. But
Yeah,
the whole experience leading up to that,
it's horrible. Like,
terrible.
well, I mean, it wasn't like that to me. It wasn't that big of a deal, but at the same time, just having somebody call me and say, "Hey, by the way," like, because I'm sure it's flagged somewhere in the computer system. We're so technologically advanced that, "Oh, this card's been canceled. Call this person." And, how hard is that to put a little note up, and then your customer service people go, "Oh, by the way, Mr. Manus, yeah, your card has been canceled." And I go, "Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot
It has?
you were on my auto pay," or yeah, or what, and that's happened too, right? So I like that. I like that aspect of things where proactively calling people, when they're, well, obviously when they're late and everything, it's not only proactive, but you got your stuff stored there. So we
Right, right. And we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to help you keep your stuff,
sure.
right?
And I do
Nobody
make
here
note of
wants to go to auction. So,
correct,
yeah.
correct. So okay, sorry, I went off on a little bit of a tangent, but
No, I listen, all of it is about service and
yeah,
about the experience that you had. And so every bit of that, somebody can take something away from that. But I'm going to say the experience of you calling and getting voicemail in that case, ugh,
I
just
know.
ugh. Yeah.
Like now I'm trying to satisfy their needs because they're obviously I didn't prior to that. So as a customer and as a good customer, if I was a bad customer, I'd be like, whatever, you know. But
You're
as a
going to
good,
turn me off.
so what, they're gonna,
Yeah.
get in line. Everybody else is turning me off. Yeah. So when I call them, and I was just like, I wasn't devastated, but I was just like, "Oh, really? A voicemail? Okay, call me back. I think I know what happened. I just want to confirm that that's what happened because you didn't really leave me any information, except for the little note on my door saying, by the way, we're going to shut your gas off." I had the similar experience when I first bought my house, when I first got divorced. We get these little cards in the mail for our water bill.
Okay.
And when I was married, I didn't do the bills. My
Mm.
ex-wife did the bills, so I didn't know that we got a little green card in the mail. So when I got my mail, it kind of just went in the crap mail of it, the stuff, and I would just go like, I'll go no, no, no bills, and so I just kept throwing away the water bill, not knowing it was even in there. And then somebody called me up and said, "Hey, don't you live at this address?" And I go, "Yeah." And they go, "Well, your house is up for auction." And I go, "What?" And they go, "Yeah."
Your
And
water bill can auction your house.
well, and I didn't think anything of it, as in like I guess I get a yearly water bill because I'm in a rural area, so it's a little
Okay.
town. And all of a sudden I look, this tells you I opened the newspaper and I look and I go, what? So I call them up and they go, yeah, we haven't paid your water bill since you bought the house. So, and you're obviously using water. And I go, I'm not getting any bills. Like you send me like I'll pay it right now. How much do I owe? And it was like 116 bucks. And it was only like 9 months overdue. So I'm like, you're going
But
to try.
9 months,
Yeah.
James, you never thought to pay for water in 9 months. Come on,
Well,
dude.
no, I figured because it's a small town that maybe that they just either who they're dealing with sends me a water bill per year. At the time, I was starting all over again. That was the last thing.
Last thing on your
I had two
mind,
little
sure.
kids. I was the water. Every time I went, it was on.
That's all you
If
need to
I
know about the
right,
water.
if it didn't come on, then I'd been like, oh, let me contact the township, right? And they'd be like,
You
yep.
think that would have been the next step prior to auctioning your home?
Well, things have changed since then. And they don't send the green cards anymore. They send them in a letter, like in an envelope, so it doesn't get lost. But as silly as that is, to be in that as a customer, to be in that situation where now I'm in a panic mode. I'm like, I'm starting my life all over again, and here it is, like, and a lot of people are in that situation when
When they're in storage, yeah.
they're going through a divorce, they're upsizing or they're downsizing, or life has hit them hard. Their parents died or something like that, and they're putting their stuff like to be a kind uh business person in that type of environment is very key.
It
You
is.
know?
It's a key part of what we train on here, just so you know, helpful, friendly, and kind
Yeah,
is a requirement that we have for our team, right? And we train to emotional empathy
yeah,
because do we want to sell a unit? Absolutely we do. But is this the time to go, how do I get you in a 10 by 10 today, James?
yeah,
Like that's not going to work if we're talking about someone who says, "Hey, I'm cleaning out my mom's house and I just need a space to put some stuff until I decide what I want to keep."
right,
This is not the time for a hard pressure, right? This
absolutely,
is emotional intelligence, helpful, friendly, and kind, where you come down, meet them where they are, and just say, you know what, I'm going to help you as quickly as I can. Get this to-do list taken care of for you, or, get this item off of your to-do list so
right,
you can move on and handle the other things. And if you didn't answer the phone, well, first of all, I'm just going to help you out. If you didn't answer the phone, they're not leaving a message. They're going to hang up and call the next one down the list on their Google,
absolutely,
right?
absolutely,
And so do yourself a favor if you are competing, especially if you're in a market that has REITs around you, if you have companies that you know are being managed by third-party management companies, they are all using call centers, whether they're internal, like their own employees, or a third party like XPS, they're all using them. And so if you are not, you are automatically putting yourself at a disadvantage because technically they're open 100 hours a week and you're only open 40,
right,
right?
yeah,
Um, so I recommend that just for everybody. And it doesn't have to be me. Listen, if you have a personal problem with Shannon Charbonneau, I'm still going to recommend that you answer the phone. And I've got friends over at other companies who will help.
yeah. I don't know why they'd have a personal problem with you.
I don't either. I am
I
delightful. Make
mean,
sure you tell them all.
you are a bit aggressively mean, but that's okay.
It's assertive, James. It's assertive.
Assertive, assertive. Sorry.
I love
So
it. But
aggressive.
I'm just saying, listen, it's
Yeah,
important. Answer the phone. Answer
sure.
the phone. Yeah.
So let's talk about a couple more things, and then we'll kind of wrap up things. Only because I don't like going too far over like an hour. it's great information for people that one are using or owning a facility, people that are getting ready to start owning a facility or thinking about it, getting into the business. A lot of good information because, like you said earlier, is that the customers are paying your bills, right? So the nicer you are to them, the better experience they have, the more likely they are to recommend, the more likely they are to reuse your services again, and talk just talk well about you, give you a good review, you know. So, um, but what's your thoughts on other things that provided through XPS or through you specifically through XPS that you want to talk about?
So the one thing that I would kind of end with is, think about the best that you want to be able to provide to your callers, your tenant experience all the way through, and start there. Like set the bar high. You can. And that means, you look at your own staffing situation. It looks at your overflow model, and it looks at, do you want to just have customer service, or do you actually want to have someone who can, do some elevated things? What you're doing with a, hub and spoke style of management is so very common. And honestly, if I owned multiple facilities in a fairly tight geographical area, 100%, it is what I would do personally. I think it just makes sense. Um, but I just always think this is not just about your customer's experience, this is about your staff as well. And there's a level of anxiety that comes along with, if I don't catch that call, that caller could go away and never rent. I have to answer it. I could be literally scrubbing a toilet right now, but I have to answer that phone, or answering their cell phone while they're driving to the bank, right? This is not the time. This is not the best use of time for them to be quoting a unit to the caller while they're driving to the bank. God forbid they have an accident in that case while they're doing business for your company. Um, so having that backup for them is so beneficial to your staff as well. So this goes beyond your tenant experience to your staff experience, and making sure that they know, listen, if that call gets past me, somebody's going to handle this.
Yeah. A lot, and when I talk to people about when they're thinking about buying property, so I've talked to a lot of people about acquisitions, and I do underwriting and stuff like that for people. And I talk to them about the and I ask them first and foremost, what's their goal? Do they want to buy a job, right? If they want to buy a job, then go right ahead, be an owner operator and do it all yourself. Um, but you're going to find out shortly after that maybe that's not what you wanted to do. So in that, I say the same thing to owner operators that don't have a call center for that matter, or a manager, or anybody, third party management company, anything that goes along that aspect is, I'm not going to spend $1.5 million on a property or better to have a job. I could get
Mm.
a job for free, right? It's gonna pay me, right? So, but the things that make it so that you have the free time to do this, to live this uh, entrepreneurial life, is the companies like XPS, the companies that are like Store Suite and On the Go, On the Move. I'm sorry, On the Move. All those different companies that all offer that third party access to free your time up
That's
to
right.
to then look at, let's call it 10,000 feet, so that you can go now comfortably.
Acquire the next facility.
Exactly.
Right. Because that's your job. Your job is to acquire the next facility, not run this one. Right.
Yeah.
And there are so many, wonderful, wonderful third party managers in the industry, Store Suite being one of them, highly recommend.
Yeah.
Um, and they use an internal call center. Go
Yeah.
figure.
Yeah, I mean,
It's because that's how it's done.
well, that's how it's done. If you want to get out of that rat race of having a job, right? Especially, and I always go back to that because I've had so many conversations with so many people on the acquisition side of things, and they're like, well, I could just do that myself, and I
Mm.
go, that's what you want to do, but I know one thing. I don't want to, I mean, every once in a while I get a call and it's not from a customer. It's usually from the management company or a vendor that I have in some aspect. But I don't want to you sit down at dinner time and have a phone call of, somebody wants to rent a space for me or somebody wants to
Won't find their gate code or
yeah,
yeah.
or there's a cat in my storage unit and I can't get it out. Like I actually had
You
that.
had that?
I had that call. Well, I
I
got
don't think I've ever had that call. Okay.
I had it. It was actually a text from somebody. It's a long story, but basically, um, there's a there's a cat in my storage unit, and we can't get it out. What are we supposed to do? And I was like, man, first of all,
Open the door.
well, yeah, I mean, yeah, you could open the door or just, call animal control. Like, why are you calling me at 7 o'clock at night? Or why are you texting me 7 o'clock at night? Like, it's not that hard of a
Well,
decision.
like, first of all, these units are sealed, so if there's a cat in there, you probably brought it in, my friend.
Or you open the door and you were over there putting stuff in the trash and the cat was like, "Oh, what do you have in here?" And it went in, and now you're like, "Oh, look, there's a cat in there." Or you open it back up and you're like, "Oh, what
There
happened in
was a
there?"
cat in there. Oh, ouch.
Yeah, and so, but I like that the third party management systems are available for that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
So,
and like I said, third-party managers use call center services because it's an economical, viable way to operate those phones, for sure.
once we're done, I have when we sign off here, I want to talk to you a little bit after because I have some business stuff that I want to talk to you about. So,
Awesome. Well,
okay.
thank you again for having me, James.
Yeah,
I'm really
I like I said,
happy to have the
everybody.
opportunity just to chat with you. You know, I love you.
Yeah, thank you. Same here. And hopefully whoever is watching and made it to the end, and they can watch this on my YouTube channel. Just look up the Storage Student on YouTube, and where can they reach you?
So xpsusa.com, easiest way to reach out to us. There's a click here if you want to have a contact or set up a meeting on there. And obviously I'm on LinkedIn, Shannon Charbonneau. Happy to help.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I'll have this posted up and you can share it all you want.
Awesome. Thank you.